The British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Good afternoon, I'm Emily Deneen, and here's what's making headlines to 3. Julio Montaner, the executive director of the BC Centre of Excellence, says his wish was answered when drug inhalation rooms were brought to the Vancouver safe injection site. Clients will have access in a few weeks. The negative pressure rooms allow air to circulate and clear the air in 30 to 60 seconds, and the occupants are constantly monitored by nurses. Almost 2/3 of overdoses in BC came from smoking illicit drugs, yet only 40% of sites offer a safe space to smoke. And when smoking is offered, it is normally outside in a tent. The 2023 Disability Without Poverty report card evaluated the Canadian government's, quote, performance toward people with disabilities who live in poverty, with an eye for incomplete. Reporter Sophie Hansen has more on the reason behind the low letter grade.
The report shared that people with disabilities face systemic barriers to achieving and maintaining jobs, housing security, and income support, as well as resources to live adequately. Ken Boyce, a disability activist, says the new Canadian disability benefit is heavily restricted and difficult to navigate, adding to the overall sense of exclusion.
The amount that I saw my quality of life decrease, not just because of my illness, but because of the incredible restrictions that come with even accepting these very minimal benefits, really puts you at a disadvantage compared to able-bodied Canadians.
Boyce intends to continue her activism, but urges the government to invite those with disabilities to participate in discussions. Sophie Hansen, BCIT's The Crow.
A significant change is made to Instagram this week through Meta with the introduction of Instagram for Teens. Now all users under the age of 18 have their accounts set to private by default. Reporter Grace Chen has more on this story.
Jesse Miller, an educator who spearheaded Mediated Reality, a company that specializes on new media education, says that he is striving to bridge the gap between kids and their parents and students and their teachers when it comes to staying safe online. He believes that it's all about empowerment versus control when it comes to Instagram for teens.
So empowerment, that's a big part of my work, empowering young people to use their online voices for change, to create the world that they want to see, and at the same time also recognizing that they grow up with the internet.
Likewise, Rhiannon Wong from the BC Society of Transition Houses believes in empowering young people and survivors of online dating violence to make their own decisions within and behind the screens.
Yeah, the work that we do is really to empower survivors and young people to make choices and be able to use technology safely.
New limitations on platforms can be effective for keeping young folks safe, but it is ultimately up to them to stay informed digitally and redefine the rules themselves. Grace Chen, BCIT's The Crow.
Grace now joins us live in the studio. Grace, can you elaborate on the new restrictions on Instagram for Teens that involves parents?
Yes, so with this monumental change, parents will now be able to see who their kids have been messaging on Instagram the past 7 days. And to protect user privacy, of course, they won't be able to see who exactly, but they won't be able to see the content of the messages, but they can see the users they've been talking with.
All right, and how does this platform ensure teens do not abuse the rules?
So this feature is still being met with criticism, as there will be some people who lie about their age. But as a way to combat this, Meta is collaborating with a technology company called Trust, Transparency, and Control Lab, which basically ensures a profile review of teenagers online and ensures that they are who they say they are and not lying with a fake adult birthday. And the changes are being tested in the US next year, so nothing is perfect now, but this is why organizations like Mediated Reality and the BC Transition of Houses work so hard to educate youth and their parents about digital media.
All right, thank you, Grace.
Thank you.
The group representing Canada's physicians has apologized for the harm medical professionals have caused to First Peoples. The Canadian Medical Association, or CMA, says it's deeply ashamed of its history of racism, neglect, and abuse. Métis elder Jimmy DeRoche says this apology is important, but it will be a long time before reconciliation is achieved.
It's going to take a long time because there's a lot of damage and harm that was done to our people. And many of them to this day will not even address that. They will not admit it. Many, I know many. And that's the fact of the matter. We need the truth first.
The BC Green Party wants to lower the voting age in the province to 16. It says this will empower younger people to strengthen democracy. Sonia First-to-Know, the Green leader, says this would jumpstart civic engagement while giving young people a say in their future. The Green Party say BC should join other progressive countries that are committed to making change. It's also saying that it will create a Standing Citizens Assembly, which is a group of 40 who would meet every 2 years. These people would discuss recommendations on issues in their communities. 3 First Nations and the BC government has reached an agreement to sell condos for over 60% of their market value. The deal with Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam First Peoples would have the government loan the other 40% of costs over 25 years. Premier David Eby says everyone should find a decent place to live.
For too long, the vision of home ownership, the idea of home ownership has been out of reach for way too many people. People who earn a decent income, priced out of the market, and not seeing any path to being able to own a home. We have worked hard with our partners in municipal government, with First Nations partners, with the private sector, with the nonprofit sector, to turn that around.
Quebec Premier François Legault says Bloc Québécois must vote to topple the federal Liberal government, which would cause an election. Legault called on Parti Québécois leader Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon to ask the Bloc to support the Conservative non-confidence motion. This motion is against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and shows that the country has no confidence in him. The Bloc Québécois and Parti Québécois have previously worked together to campaign for Quebec's independence. After being asked, Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet posted on X that he would not vote to topple Trudeau. He says that he serves Quebec on his own judgment. U.S. President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, will be sentenced in December for felony firearm charges. This comes after a judge agreed to delay the request by the defense. Mike Hempin of the Associated Press explains what this means for the Bidens.
The judge has agreed to a delay requested by Biden's lawyers, who say they need more time to prepare. Biden was scheduled to be sentenced November 13th. In June, President Biden's son was convicted in Delaware federal court of 3 felonies for purchasing a gun in 2018, when prosecutors say he lied on a federal form by claiming he was not illegally using or addicted to drugs. The gun charges are punishable by up to 25 years in prison, but it's possible Hunter Biden will likely face far less time behind bars or possibly avoid prison time entirely. I'm Mike Hempin.
The union representing striking Boeing workers says no progress was made in talks with the company. On Wednesday, Boeing announced that thousands of employees will be suspended for the duration of the strike, and executives are taking reduced pay. Union President Brian Bryant says pay has been a source of conversation between Boeing and its workers for several years.
These workers have gone through 10 years, nearly a decade of wage stagnation, the loss of their pension, continued increase in costs of health insurance. All along, they've seen the corporate executives of this company continuously getting their high salaries, increases in those salaries.
Apple is providing more people with the opportunity to test their new artificial intelligence into Siri in their phone. The free update was made available Thursday to an audience that signed up to test the software before it will be released to all iPhone owners. Only 2 iPhones that came out last year have the capacity to support this new software. And all of the new iPhone 16 models will be able to handle Apple Intelligence. It is currently 18 degrees out there with a low of 11 overnight. Fuzzy sock and pumpkin season is here. That has been your news update to 3. The next cast is at 3:30. Emily Deneen, BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Good afternoon. I'm Spencer Pomeroy, and this is your 3:15 Sports Update. Hockey season has arrived today as the Canucks open their training camp in Penticton. The Canucks will begin training camp without goaltender Thatcher Demko as he makes his way back from injury. Demko spoke to the media earlier today to update his status.
When I first felt the injury, obviously wasn't too sure what it was, and as we kind of dived into some research and things, it was a little ambiguous, and it's been, like I said, a little bit of a frustrating summer, just trying to get some answers. And obviously we've talked to all the specialists that we can around the world and North America and even overseas, and this is the information that we've kind of gathered, and myself and the staff and the organization are fully confident that we're on the right track.
Canucks' big offseason signing Jake DeBrusk signed a 7-year, $38.5 million deal with the club and made his debut today at training camp. DeBrusk talks about skating with Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, well, he fed me with a nice tap on, I think, the first or second line rush we did. So I've been skating here for probably a week now, I guess, with the guys, and I've just been watching him play and trying to just read off him as much as possible. And also, I can't pronounce his name, so I feel bad, but that kid on the right side's pretty damn good, too.
The Canucks' first preseason game is Tuesday at home against the Seattle Kraken. In other NHL news, the Detroit Red Wings signed Moritz Seider to a 7-year contract worth nearly $60 million. Detroit drafted Seider with the number 6 overall pick 8 years ago. He has 134 career points, the most by a defenseman drafted in 2009. Seider won the Calder Trophy as the league's top rookie in 2022. Also, Cal Okposo is going out as a Stanley Cup champion. The veteran winger announced his retirement today after 17 seasons in the NHL. The former Buffalo Sabres captain helped the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup earlier this year. And don't forget to stay tuned after the cast for today's sports comment on the Toronto Maple Leafs and Mitch Marner. Now, in baseball, with the Brewers and Yankees clinching yesterday, the Guardians were looking to join them in the postseason. Guardians second baseman Andres Jimenez stepped up to the plate in extras.
Payoff pitch. Rock, right field. Jose Ramirez around third. Here he comes. Book it. The Guardians will play in October.
The Guardians' 3-2 victory secured them a spot in the playoffs. Shohei Ohtani was in action earlier today.
There they go. Throw to third. Beats him, but he got his foot in. The 50th for Ohtani.
Shohei Ohtani stole his 50th base in the first inning against the Miami Marlins, putting the Los Angeles Dodgers star just 2 home runs away from the first 50-50 season in Major League history. Ohtani hit a leadoff double against Edward Cabrera on Thursday and swiped third on the front end of a double steal with Freddie Freeman, who reached on a walk. On the pitch earlier, Day 3 of the UEFA Champions League featured 6 matches. One result saw Florian Wirtz score his first Champions League goal in a 4-0 victory for Bayern Leverkusen against Feyenoord. In other results, 2024 Europa League champions Atalanta tied Arsenal 0-0. Barcelona fell to Monaco 2-1, and center-back Jose Maria Jimenez scored late to give Atletico Madrid the edge over Leipzig. In Canadian content, sports coaches in Canada have been receiving recognition for National Coaches Week in our country. Nicholas Hauka with more.
When great coaches are talked about, one of the first things mentioned is their win-loss record. Caden McTaggart, junior varsity head coach of the Sullivan Heights Stars, says he's more concerned with his players' wins off the field than on.
I think one of the most important things for coaching is not overlooking, any individual player. Like in amateur sports, it's not all 100% about winning. It's about developing people to be high character people. And so that means you can't overlook somebody who maybe isn't going to see the field all the time or isn't going to have the biggest impact on the team. Those kids matter, and you're having a huge impact on their lives.
Week 3 of the NFL season kicks off tonight as the New York Jets welcome the New England Patriots. That has been your 3:15 Sports Update. I'm Spencer Pomeroy, and you're listening to BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Playoff disappointment has become all too common for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs' current core of Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and Riley have won only a single playoff series since the 2016-17 season. With questions surrounding the ability of the core, some fans are begging for a change. Leafs forward Mitch Marner is due for a big payday this coming offseason. The 27-year-old has averaged 1.1 points per game in the regular season, but that dips down to 0.87 in the playoffs. Some players just aren't built for playoff hockey. In 57 career playoff games, Marner has tallied only 11 goals. The Leafs need to take advantage of Marner's regular season value and trade him immediately before he walks away for free this offseason. The Leafs should look to the current Stanley Cup champions Florida Panthers for their blueprint. The Panthers traded star forward Jonathan Huberdeau coming off a 115-point season and pending free agent defense Mackenzie Weegar to the Flames. In return, the Flames received Flames star forward Matthew Tkachuk, who they signed to a cheaper deal, resetting the clock on its top forward. This trade freed up some cap space to add more depth and freshen up its core. The Leafs need to do something similar with Marner before the inevitable happens again, another playoff failure. They should not extend Marner and spread the cash elsewhere in hopes of propelling them to a Stanley Cup. I'm Spencer Pomeroy, and that's today's Sports Comment.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.